It's time for CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, YouTube, and TuneIn. The easiest thing to do is tell Alexa or Siri to play CBJ in 30. Here's your host, Bob McElligott.
I'm not too interested in the losses, and I'm interested into the points now. Remember, this league, if you can get 1 point during it, that's all I'm concerned about. When we haven't had many games for quite a while that we haven't gotten a point. Last one, we didn't get a point. We can't let that happen too often. So I know everybody says they haven't won in 4 games. Who gives a shit? We got 2 points in them, though, too. And, so we're going to keep banging away here.
The Blue Jackets didn't get what they wanted last night. They wanted to get 2 points against the New Jersey Devils, but they did get what they needed. They got 1 point, losing in a shootout by the score of 4-3, and that 1 point was certainly better than the alternative. Welcome to CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott. Today is Monday, and that means a Monday mailbag edition of the show. That means your questions for me. And let me just tell you, before I even get to them, I have 3 voice questions for you today, questions that people have gone on their phone, recorded a voice memo, and emailed to me at bobbymac@bluejackets.com. And I love these 3 questions. I really do. I love them. I have other questions on Twitter. They're okay. I love the 3 voice questions. If you haven't sent one yet, you need to do it. If you want to be a part of the show and have your voice be heard, you need to do it because I think it just adds a lot. And again, I know I'm pumping them up. I'm blowing it up here, but I really like what I have, and you're going to hear it in just a minute. But first, I'm going to tell you about Telhio Credit Union and about all of the things that they have. Things that can help service you financially. How often do you think about it? I mean, if you have your money somewhere, how often do you think about, do I have it in the right place? If you have it in a bank, how often do you think of whether or not you should put it in a credit union? How often do you think of what it means to join a credit union, what the benefits are? You probably don't think of it all that often, although if you listen to this show, you should. And you should have already gone to telhio.org to find out what a credit union is all about, to find out if they can help you with your money. Go to telhio.org. The answers are right there for you. All you have to do is surf around. You can find the answers. If there's something you can't find during business hours, just go to the right of the screen, click on the live chat option, and you'll get help right there. If you don't want to do it online, you want to talk to a person, all you have to do is swing by one of their local offices, walk in. They will be happy to see you. They'll be happy to tell you about the benefits of joining a credit union. They'll be happy to tell you about all of the different things they can provide for you, and that's a lot of things. It is quite a few. So you owe it to yourself, quite frankly, to find out all about the services at Telhio Credit Union. Telhio Credit Union is open to everyone in central and southwestern Ohio. They are federally insured by NCUA. All right, let's start it off and get to the voice questions right off the top here, and we're going to go north to Cleveland to get it started.
Hi, Bob. This is Greg in Cleveland. On your February 7th episode, you had the in-depth discussion about the Blue Jackets having an analytics conference. So with that in mind, I had a 2-part question. One, if analytics is so great, why would you share this with the enemy or other teams, so to speak? The second thing is, I think you and I are on the same page as far as just not the biggest believers that analytics is this holy grail. This all started with the Moneyball thing with the Oakland Athletics, and they have gone to 0 World Series since they've implemented this. The Cleveland Browns front office is very big on analytics. That whole circus has been well documented. So I'm just wondering, am I missing something? What are all these teams going so gung-ho about for the concept of analytics?
Well, Greg, you have a great 2-part question, and let me answer it in order, starting with number 1, where you say, why would you want to share the information with the enemy? The fact of the matter is most teams are doing the exact same thing. They are subscribing to different services. They are getting their numbers from different services. The NHL will begin tracking very soon, which you heard on that show where they talked about the NHL tracking. They're going to start it in the playoffs. It's going to become just a regular thing. After that, next year, there is going to be tracking. There are going to be more stats than you can shake a stick at, quite frankly. So you're not really sharing it with the enemy. Everybody is doing pretty much the same thing. Now, there might be a variation on some things. from one team to another, but for the most part, they are doing the same thing. And they're going to compare notes on it. Let's be honest. They really are. They're going to compare notes. And the reason is, in my opinion, this is my opinion, it goes to the second part of your question, which is how high are you on analytics? As you said, you're not very high on it. I've told you I'm not very high on it. It does have a place. But the fact of the matter is the eye test, which I prefer, goes hand in hand with the numbers. And the analysts will say that what you see with your eye should match up with the numbers that they have. And many times it absolutely does. And that's why this works. But I love your comparison about the Oakland Athletics and Moneyball. I didn't read the book. I did watch the movie. And it was an entertaining movie. And it was a fun movie. And it was based on a true story, of course. But here are the facts. Exactly what you said. The Oakland A's haven't gone to or won a World Series by using analytics. I got the feeling in that movie that Billy Beane and his staff worked just too much exclusively on the analytics. Yes, of course they found players that excelled or played at a different position where they didn't think they would be able to play there, and where conventional wisdom said they wouldn't succeed at that position. Yeah, that's all great. That's all well and good. But winning a championship, that's not what they did. And to me, this is where, to get over the hump, you need to measure the heart, the soul, the will, and the desire of individuals, and then put that into team play as well. I think the St. Louis Blues are a great example of that. I don't know what their analytics said last year in January. All I know is that in June, they were Stanley Cup champions, okay? And they had some guys that they put on that roster that had grit, they had that heart, determination, all that stuff, and I don't know if analytics measures that. I'm pretty sure it doesn't measure that. Now, there'll be one person out there that says, oh, yes, I've got the number to measure heart. I've got the number to measure desire. Look, maybe you could say that you can tell me the heart and desire by certain numbers, but I think they're two different things. I think that, again, analytics have a place. If you're one of those people that is so dialed into it, don't get mad at me right now. And I don't know what the analytics from last night's game look like. I didn't look at anything that anybody wrote because I don't care. I just know the Blue Jackets lost the game. I know they had over 50 shots. I know they had grade A chances. I know they didn't bury those chances and all that stuff. I don't know let's just say I don't know what Sonny Milano's analytics were last night, but I really didn't think he played that great of a game, quite frankly. So my eye test says he was, and I don't know what the analytics say. You know, I know that some people felt that he played a good game. I didn't. I don't see him generating much, and that's not just last night. This is a number of games now, and I'm not getting any tweets for these. I got tweets early in the season for people complaining that Sonny wasn't playing enough, and maybe now, in your opinion, he's playing enough. Sometimes I'm looking for the tweets going the other way. But you can't say, why is this guy playing too much? Why is this guy playing too much? There's nobody to play. I mean, there's just not a lot of options right now. So, again, I don't know what the analytics say about certain things. Greg, you bring up the Browns. Again, I just don't think you can – and I'm not saying that they do this because I really don't know. But to me, overall, it is not just the numbers. It is the numbers mixed in with what you see. It is the numbers mixed in with the human elements of the game. You have to have all of it, and it all has to go together. And maybe that's where the teams are different in measuring things. And again, I don't know. This is all new to me for the most part. It's too new to me. I am not listen, I started in baseball, okay? And baseball, not just Moneyball stats. Baseball has been about stats forever. That's what it is. It's batting averages and fielding percentages and earned run averages, and now it's the whip when it comes to the pitchers and all this stuff. So baseball has always been about the numbers and the statistics. But I have always said you can skew statistics to be pretty much whatever you want them to be. I can tell you that if there's a player that has 3 goals in the last 5 games, that sounds terrific. Well, he might also have 3 goals in the last 15 games, and that doesn't sound so good. It all depends upon when you make the cutoff to decide how good it is going to sound. Now, again, not being totally into it, so for you numbers people, don't get mad at me here, but maybe there are other analytics that cut through all of that, and you can't be arbitrary about it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't care. I think we've all come to that conclusion. But, Greg, you bring up good questions, and I do appreciate that. And if you do have feedback, if you want to educate me, if you want to take it upon yourself to try to educate me and try to bring me to the dark side a little bit, you can do that. I welcome it because, I do learn something in all of these conversations. I know that there are some things that are good that I don't realize and I have not looked at. So, again, I'm not saying this is a drop dead, I'm right and you're wrong kind of a thing, although that's pretty normal. No, I'm kidding. But it's not an I'm right, you're wrong. It is, I think I'm right, and if I am wrong, I would love to hear your argument on it. I know that's not the way that things work in today's world for the most part, but it's how they work here. So I would love to hear from you if you have a pushback for me, or you want to tell me why I'm wrong, or if you want to try to enlighten me. That would be a much nicer way of saying it. But again, Greg, thank you for the question. Let's move on to the next one.
Hey there, Bob. This is Don out in Virginia. I'm originally an Ohio boy, so I really appreciate all that you do for our fan base all across the country with all these podcasts that you do. It really helps me keep in tune with the team back home. I'm actually somebody that you called out, rightfully so, back last April. I was tweeting you after a loss, and you took me to task because I was calling out Seth Jones, our beloved all-star Seth Jones. So I wanted to say really quick, I appreciate you keeping me honest right there. Hopefully, we are getting Korpisalo back sometime soon. Do you have any word on that? Because I think, Elvis has been doing great. He's been making some amazing saves, but I think he might be feeling a little tired or what have you. So hopefully Korpisalo's back soon.
Don, let me tell you what I like about you. You know how to man up. I wouldn't have remembered that situation from last year with you calling out Seth Jones, but you did. And you stepped up and you just admitted to your misgivings or your mistakes, whatever you want to call them, in calling out Seth Jones. So I admire that about you, Don. I really do. And could you imagine today calling out Seth Jones, questioning Seth Jones, how good Seth Jones is, how much he means to this team? Let's be honest, and this goes to the answer to your question as well, Don. Seth Jones is everything to the Columbus Blue Jackets. I can honestly tell you that. I knew that. I think you knew that. But I think we all got spoiled. I say this all the time. Every time I do a national interview, and I'm on SiriusXM NHL Radio, I say this. Every time I'm on with our network station in Lima, I say this. Every time I'm on with anybody, anywhere, I say this. I get spoiled watching Seth Jones play. I forget how good Seth Jones actually is. I do, because I see it every day. What is an exceptional play, he makes look routine. I have become accustomed to watching that quote-unquote routine, and I think that it's normal. Without Seth Jones in the lineup, I can tell you most of what he does is not normal. It's not normal by a long shot. This guy does so many things, and it's both on and off the ice. This team, with the exception of the game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and that was the first one, so I'm not sure how it didn't start right there. With the exception of that game, this team, in many aspects of defensive play, looks lost. It really does. And, Don, this is how it goes to the question that you asked. And your question was, how close is Joonas Korpisalo to being ready to come back? I am going to speculate, and I think I'm safe in saying this, and if it comes back quicker, then I look like, I don't even care if I look stupid. But week and a half to 2 weeks. That's my guess. I know he's playing. I know he's taking shots and all that stuff. And I hope it is sooner than that. I grew up a fan of the original Star Trek, and I remember that one time Captain Kirk, played by William Shatner, asked Mr. Scott, who's the chief engineer, about purposely lengthening the repair times. And he just smiled and he said, "Aye, sir. How do I keep my reputation as a miracle worker?" Right? So it's the same kind of thing. If it comes back shorter than that, then great. That's fine. I'm wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. But here's the thing. This is where the Seth Jones comes into the Elvis Moore-Leakins. Elvis has been terrific. He's been tremendous. I think that he has been above and beyond what I thought that he would be, what you thought that he would be when Korpisalo got hurt. Let's be honest about it, because at that point in time, he had all this great fanfare. He had all of these accolades, all of these stories written about him, but at that time, he had 0 NHL wins. Who would think that he would do what he has done in the absence of Korpisalo? Nobody. I don't care. Don't even try to tell me that you thought that, because I'll call you a liar. Nobody thought that, okay? But he's been terrific. But what we're seeing right now is that he has been a product of the total team defense. That doesn't mean that he's bad. That doesn't mean he's getting worse. It means that the defense in front of him is now faltering, and he is handling or he's taking some of the brunt of it, is what's going on here. So Elvis is a product of the team. That's what it's all about. And John Tortorella has said this day in and day out. It's not the Elvis show. It's not about one guy. It's about the team. The team is now struggling in their defensive game. They're struggling because they don't have Seth Jones. And they can say all they want to about, well, we're not going to blame injuries and this and that. Look, there was one guy you couldn't lose. One guy. And that was Seth Jones. And they have lost him for the remainder of the regular season at the very least. They have lost him, and they are trying to find their way, to quote John Tortorella. And listen, that is a testament, once again, of how good of a player that he is. When he plays with Zach Werenski, if Zach makes a mistake, Seth cleans it up. If Seth is not there and Zach makes a mistake, the mistake stands out. Marcus Nunavara has been put into a role on the top defensive pair. He's not ready for that role right now. And I think he has struggled ever since he's come back from injury, personally. He's not ready for that role, but who do you put there if it's not him? Is it going to be Andrew Peeke? He's a rookie. No, probably not. So Seth Jones, he is the straw that stirs the drink. The drink is not being stirred right now. Other guys have got to find a way to step up. They've got to be better. But again, the answer to the question, first of all, don't ever doubt Seth Jones again. Ever, 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 ever. And I'm sure you won't. But secondly, the Moore-Leakins performance is linked to not having Seth Jones and to the team defense breaking down a little bit. So when Korpisalo comes back, that's going to be great. But don't forget, he too is a part of that team defense. He too benefits from that team defense. If they don't fix that aspect, then it's going to be just as much as a struggle for him, maybe even a little bit more, coming back from injury. I've got one more voice question to send your way. Here it is.
Hey, Bob, Dave in New York. My question this week is a kind of just general defensive question. When Werenski was playing at U of M, he talked about how he learned to pull a forward all the way into our zone on their forecheck and really, leave them deep so when we're having an offensive rush, they're left behind. With Elvis in net now and him playing a new kind of Marty Brodeur, third defenseman, puck mover, goalie kind of role, does that mess with that kind of play? Is it a factor? Am I giving it too much weight? What are your thoughts?
Well, Dave, thank you for the question. I will be honest with you. I do think you're giving it a little bit too much play. First of all, John Tortorella doesn't want Moore-Leakins to overplay the puck. He wants him to play it when it's necessary. So Zach can continue to play the style of game that he has been playing. But with that being said, there are different dynamics that come from having a goaltender that plays the puck well. So it's not going to change what Zach is trying to do. And he is going to have to read off of Elvis and vice versa. And as long as they're in constant communication, that's not going to be an issue whatsoever. But again, having a goaltender that can play the puck is a luxury. Not a lot of teams have it. And Elvis was well, let's be honest, he was pretty reckless with it at the beginning of the season. He's gotten much better at it, and I think that's going to help this team tremendously. In fact, once Korpisalo comes back, I think one of the major adjustments that the Blue Jackets are going to have to make is that you have one goaltender that really moves the puck a lot and another that doesn't move it all so much. So they're going to have that communication at an all-time high. And that's not saying that Elvis moves it too much and Korpisalo needs to move it more, anything like that. It's just different styles, and they're going to have to be used to those different styles. And I think they will be. I really think they will. But those two things can still work together, and I'm sure that they will work together. All right, time to go to Twitter and get your questions at Bobby Mack Sports. We'll start with Buckeye State Sports, who says plenty of fans want the Blue Jackets to acquire offense. What is the market for goal scoring this season, and is there really a move to be made, or are we better off relying on the return of Wenberg, Atkinson, Anderson, etc.? I don't know what the market is, and I don't know if the Blue Jackets are in the spot that they were earlier in the year to make a deal. I mean, we've talked about using their defensive depth to acquire offense. Well, now they don't have any defensive depth because they're all playing, right? Seth Jones is not going to play the rest of the regular season. Dean Kukin is still on crutches, so they're without him. They have everybody in the game. They've got Gabriel Carlson here. They're healthy scratching, but they don't have the same depth, and that very well could hamstring them on making a move. Now, that being said, and I think we went over this last week, but I'll go over it again. If you get back Korpisalo, you get a goaltender. If you get back, let's say Ryan Murray can play at some point here soon. I don't know if he can, but let's just say that he does. You get a top-notch defenseman back. Alexander Wenberg, Cam Atkinson, Josh Anderson are all good quality top six forwards. So you would get all of them back. That's like making 5 trades. But it's about when they get back and how effective they are when they return. So I think the trade deadline, I already told you they were going to have to make a hockey deal. They weren't just going to get rental players, but I think the injuries might have a direct effect on what they are able to do. They might have to wait till the summer to do what you're looking for and what they're looking for too. Tyler Howard says, what does the NHL look at when determining who hosts outdoor games? And if the Blue Jackets were to ever host one, do you see them playing at a stadium other than Ohio Stadium? For example, First Energy Stadium in Cleveland against Pittsburgh. I don't see that at all, Tyler. If they're going to play outside, they're going to play at the Shoe. It's as simple as that. They're not going to take their show on the road. I don't care if they're Ohio's team. They're not going to Cleveland. They're not going to Cincinnati. They're going to do it at Ohio Stadium. And what does the NHL look at? It looks at a lot of different things. But there's got to be, there are issues that still have to be worked out between the university and the Blue Jackets for it to happen, or the university and the NHL, or whoever it is. There's still things that have to happen so that they can schedule the game. And I will say this. You ask about the opponent. For years, it was speculated that it could be Detroit, and there could be college games attached to it, and Ohio State could play Michigan, and what a great thing that would be. I think as bad as the Red Wings are right now, I think the Blue Jackets have to play the Penguins. My opinion, I think they have to play the Penguins. Pittsburgh is close enough for people to travel. They will travel, but that game has got to be at Ohio Stadium. If it's not, that's a fail, quite honestly. Maybe you have one at Cleveland later, Stadium Series game or something, or at the Great American Ballpark or something like that if you want to spread it out throughout the state. But when you do the first one, you've got to do it in your town. You've got to do it at that historic and iconic stadium. Simple as that, in my opinion. Aiden Montgomery says, do you know what happens to a player when that player is traded during a game like Blake Coleman was for New Jersey yesterday? Well, in Blake Coleman's case, he wasn't playing. So it was a lot easier. He already knew he was going to be scratched. I think he left the arena before the game started or right after the game started. So what happens is they tell you you're not going to play because we think we might deal you, and you kind of sit and wait. And then when they do make the deal and they tell you, then you pack up all the stuff that you have there and you go home and you get ready to move to the new destination. That is pretty much it in a nutshell. But had he been in the game, they would have had to take him out of the game. I saw that last year. I was at the Avalanche game when they played against the Islanders, and Matt Duchene got traded. He came out of the game, first period. He was gone. He went to the dressing room, and then he left because he was traded. You can't play for a team that you no longer are property of. Simple as that. Kyle Benning says, do you see the Blue Jackets making any moves next week? Defense is where we have depth, but with the injuries, we don't have depth now. We need offense, though. Yeah, all of that is right, Kyle, and I went over that. Do you need to trade for a defenseman? That's a legitimate question. Do you? That almost unthinkable. Even unthinkable today, but think about it. Do you need to do that? Shane says, of the 1997 expansion class, Nashville, Atlanta, Columbus, Minnesota, 2 have retired numbers. Atlanta, number 37 after Dan Snyder's death. Minnesota, number 1 for their fans. Does that one really count? I guess technically it does, but it's that PR stunt. Next year being the Blue Jackets' 20th on-ice season, is it a good time to retire number 61? Is it too early? Maybe wait for the 25th or the 30th? Or do you retire number 61 at all? It's tough for me. I know Rick Nash. I like Rick Nash. He holds many of the records in franchise history. And it's only tough for me because he has to be traded. Should that factor in? I don't know. But to be honest with you, Shane, I think it will get hung from the rafters at some point. I think number 72 will hang from the rafters at some point as well, despite how that ended. So if I think that, then 61 definitely has to hang. I don't know if it will be next year. I don't know if it'll be 25th anniversary. That I'm not sure of. But as I sit and think about it, I think it will hang there at some point. It's great to have Rick back in the organization now and working for the team and doing the things that he's doing. I think that will factor in as well at some point. But it's not a cut and dry question, though, right? I mean, it's really not, because there are different factors. But, I think that it will. I think 61 and 72 will both hang from the rafters at Nationwide Arena someday. Let's see. Rock OPFD. Torts has a fondness for shortening the bench late in close games, and I don't get it, especially in games like the Jersey game. Andrew Peeke scores a goal. Scott Harrington is +2, yet our third pair sits out the last 7 minutes of the third period, and then Werenski and Nudavara have nothing left for overtime. Look, you asked me these questions to get my opinion. I'm going to tell you. I don't think the minutes played in regulation had anything to do with the way Werenski and Nudavara played in overtime. I think the Blue Jackets are playing too cautious in overtime. That's being nice. I think they're playing scared in overtime. I think as a whole, not just those guys. But I think that they're trying not to make mistakes. They're not attacking. Torts said that after the game last night. He said we were going backwards, not forward, not attacking. We've got to fix that. So I don't think that plays in. Yes, Andrew Peeke did have a goal. Yes, Scott Harrington was +2, and he made a nice play bowling over Kyle Palmieri to set up the third goal for the Blue Jackets. But when you get late in games, you got to go with the guys you think are going to defend the tie game, or guys that you think can put a puck in the net and help you to win the game in regulation. And that's what he was doing. So I don't fault him for that, but I don't buy that they were tired for overtime because of the minutes they played in the third period. That's very kind of you, but I'm not buying that one, not for a minute. Coming up on Friday, it's a very special show, and that's why I'm going to promote it for you today. Friday, February 21st. It is one day prior to the 40th anniversary of Team USA beating the Soviets in the 1980 Winter Olympic Games at Lake Placid, New York. Craig Patrick was the assistant coach for Herb Brooks on that team. Craig Patrick also has been a champion general manager with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And don't forget, he spent a couple of years working in the Blue Jackets organization. I have had the great opportunity to catch up with Craig Patrick for an exclusive one-on-one interview talking about the 1980 Winter Olympic team. That will air this Friday, February 21st, on that edition of CBJ in 30. I want to tell you about it now because I want you to join me for that and celebrate such a changing event in the world. It really was. It changed the world. in many aspects because of what was going on at that time. And Craig Patrick was right there on the front lines. He is a terrific person. He is an amazing person. And I am so pleased that I was able to get together with him to talk about that experience and what it did for hockey in the United States, what it did for the United States itself, and what it did for him too, and Herb Brooks and all of the players involved. So that's coming up on Friday. I want to make sure that you know all about it. I also want to thank you for your great questions again today. Keep those voice questions coming. I love it. I love it when it is your voice asking the question and me giving you the feedback. All you have to do is tap the voice memo on your phone, record it, say your name, where you're from, and ask your question, and email it to me, BobbyMac@BlueJackets.com. And, of course, at any time, you can always tweet me a question at BobbyMacSports on Twitter. That's going to do it for today's Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ in 30, presented by Tel Ohio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.